You don't have to change yourself. You just need to be yourself. I wrote a blog post about that years ago, and it's still so true. When we are not being ourselves, we're outside of ourselves. And then we think we need to change ourselves because we don't like who we are when we're not being ourselves. So when you are yourself, you don't need to go anywhere and change anything because you're actually enjoying who you are, as crazy as that may seem, if you are out here trying to change yourself. And it's very tricky in a way, because the way I see it is that we live in a world where everybody is judging each other one way or the other. Let's be fair. Most of us, maybe not you, but the rest of us, we judge everybody and everything almost all the time. But it's not us who's doing it, it's the mind. It's like the mind is receiving these images, impulses, suggestion. Remember, I talk about these hypnotic suggestions. And then we grasp onto them, and then we bring it into our own experience as if it is true. And then we judge others. So it is no wonder that we think we need to change ourselves in order to not be judged by others. And I would say, good luck. It is never, ever, ever going to work, because maybe this person will judge you when you are changing into some other morphed form. But then there will be another one because now you're something else. And that is going to be maybe a trigger or a jealousy or a something, a different opinion or experience. And then they will judge you. So it's never going to work. So if that is helpful for all of us to just to realize, to try and change yourself to be liked by others, or to at least not be judged, or people getting angry at you for being yourself, forget it. I think most of us have tried to, turn ourselves into some kind of a pretzel where nobody will judge us and everybody will like us more or less. And we're walking around as these pretzels. And it feels really uncomfortable, doesn't it? It's like, what's that about? And then it's still not working. And then you're being this pretzel, and then they might like you for being a pretzel, but you don't like yourself for being that pretzel. And that's why you go and try and keep changing yourself and changing yourself, because you're not feeling good about who you are. So let's start there. Why don't we give ourselves permission to at least start practicing, or I should actually say, find out who you really are, even as a separate sense of self, even as the way the divine expression that you are, even how that expresses itself. You will never know because you keep trying to change it. But the expression of who you truly are is wonderful. It feels really good. It feels very relaxing. And you're not just thinking about what other people think about you. Actually, let me correct that. In the beginning, there's going to be a lot of that still, because you're testing it out, right? It's like, okay, so if I'm myself, what what would I do? Would I say yes or would I say no? But if I say yes, then they may not like me. And if I say no, then they may not like me. So what am I going to do? And so in that confusion, that's where we start learning to really listen to our own experience, our own bodies, our own hearts. And that's process. That is the process of really learning to love yourself for exactly who and what you are. And it takes a lot of courage in this world. You may have noticed that people get upset with you if they don't get their needs met. So, for instance, if you are not you are not giving or meeting or listening or hearing this other person the way they want to be met by you, then they may get angry at you. And then you start thinking, oh my God, now how do I need to meet this person next time, so they don't get angry at me? And then you start shrinking, because the truth is that you are you and they're them, and they may have, still have some deep core beliefs, which we all have, that are still being projected out, and are hoping that if you meet them the way they want to be met, then all is well. It may be for a little while, but it's this thing projecting out that others need to know exactly what we want and respond in this exact way that we want to be responded to. um, the core trauma is not going to change, because you're still demanding it or expecting it or asking for it. Could be done in a very kind way, and I think it's all fine. It all is part of the process, and it can be very helpful to learn to say, what really works well for me is when you blah blah blah. But then you're not being angry or demanding, you're just speaking your truth in your own expression. And then people can respond or not the way you want it to. But you are being true to yourself. You may say to that person, if they say, hey, it's really important that you meet me in this certain way, or listen to me in this certain way, or speak to me in this certain way. And you may say, I hear you, but that's not natural for me. Then I would have to turn myself into a pretzel, um, so that you don't feel triggered. I'm sure you've heard all this before, but I think there's something really important about breaking it down, because at the core of all of that, that's where we walk around on eggshells, depending on what personality type you are. Of course, some, they're very like boom, nothing can touch them. But of course, there's some layers underneath that, where that toughness and that hard shell is protecting something. So in my own experience, what I have practiced now for so many years is basically to find out who I am in my natural expression and speak it. And it's really a good idea to start speaking it where you feel safe. It could be with a trusted friend, a partner, a therapist, a teacher, something where you create a space where you can start speaking what is true for you and what feels right, what resonates for you. So you get to know yourself at the core of your expression. And then you start practicing that out in the world. And there is probably going to be a scary time where you'd be like, oh my God, are they going to be angry at me? And that has been my big one, because I grew up with a father who was a rageaholic and was always blaming and shaming. So my nervous system was always terrified of just, actually speaking it. But I did it, but it was with a hard shell where I had to say it in like, I couldn't say it just, because I was expecting, I was bracing for that impact. So when we expect others to judge us, let's just say it the way it is. They probably will, and they probably are, just as you and I are. And that may also be the reason that we are afraid that others will judge us, because we know that we do it ourselves all the time. I would suggest to stop judging yourself and find out what your beautiful expression is when you are just learning to let it come out uncensored. And then see, there might be people who get upset with you, and there might be people who say, wow, you're so brave. I want to try that too. It's going to have both sides always. And again, when I referred back to myself, I have always been very afraid that people will suddenly get angry at me. So I learned to, hold myself back, dampen down. And I have stopped that, but it is because I want to be fully authentic, heart open. And if I notice that I am not doing that, then I catch myself. And then I can go back to that choice that I have made. Like, I really want to live as an open vessel of the divine. I do not want to pretend I am anything other than I am, because I am just who and what I am. And the more I embrace that in myself, so it's learning what is my yes, what is my no, what is my I don't know yet. That's kind of the feeling we need to start getting familiar with. And then when we when we start accepting it and acknowledging it and really feeling it, when you start really feeling like, oh, this is my truth, because it comes with an energetic shift, and then start walking around as that, then little by little you will care less about what other people think about you. And it is so liberating. It is so liberating. I'm not fully out of the woods yet, but I have let go of so much that I feel comfortable sharing this here on my YouTube videos. And that underlying, shrinking that many of us have done, and above it, on top of the shrinking, there could be that shell, boom. But the shrinking, the vulnerable part, and the scared part, they're there. And the more you feel okay being vulnerable, being maybe highly sensitive, and embrace that about yourself, then if somebody says, you're just too sensitive, and I wrote that in my little free book that I put out. You can download it for free from one of my other videos. So if somebody says, you're too sensitive, when I have embraced my own sensitivity as like, oh, this is who I am, then I would say to somebody, I am sensitive, and I really like that about myself, because then I'm more in touch and in tune with nature, with the earth, with people. So, but I'm not too sensitive. That sounds more like a judgment. And I am not too sensitive. I am sensitive. And I like that about myself. So find a place, again, if this resonates with you, find a place of people where you can start practicing being really, really authentic and vulnerable and transparent, and just feel what that feels like. It's like, oh, wow, this is me. It feels really good, because you're not judging me or shaming me or getting angry at me. There's this space where you can just experience that about yourself. It's really sweet. And that is a lot, that's something I've done a lot of in the beginning, in the Hakomi training, which I'm a Hakomi therapist. That's where there was a space for that to be experienced. And then little by little, I just feel more okay about being myself. And it's phenomenal. Yeah. So just to come back to the title, is like, you don't need to change yourself. You just need to be yourself. And when you are yourself, you are free, you are at peace, you just feel good. It's a very different experience. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a beautiful day.